Hello, friends, and welcome to Service of Change's Changecast, your podcast for change. I'm your host, Dennis Nappy II, with Service of Change, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. We have a very interesting and exciting show tonight. I'm excited to speak with our guest coming up in a little bit, uncovering the truth. False money and the alien agenda. A lot of interesting stuff in there. I know you hear about it on a lot of your conspiracy channels and conspiracy feeds. So we're going to try and find out what this is all about. Our guest has some information that he likes to share with some of us this evening. But before we get into that, I want to talk and bring in my esteemed co-host from the depths of cyberspace to the comfort of your home screen, provoking you to think before you speak, Joel the Provocateur Schaefer. Joel, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Dennis. Great to be here. I'm feeling lively and ready to jump into some conversation.
Yeah, me too, man. And I'm proud of myself. I made it through your intro without stumbling over it.
Oh man, you wrote quite a mouthful there, so it's understandable that you may have stumbled last week.
I feel like a real live radio show host when I get to introduce you like that. I feel like you're the rock star, man. You really are.
No, you're good at what you do, my friend.
Thank you.
You definitely have the presence and the cadence of a real live radio journalist or whatever you want to call him.
I'm just kind of faking it till I make it, mimicking I guess things I hear, things I like, and I say, let me try and have my on-air personality be like that. Well, I guess my on-air personality is similar to my off-air personality. I like to run my mouth wherever I am, But
you're in good company.
Yeah, I know that, Mr. Provocateur.
So what's going on?
Oh, dude, Joel, it was a rough day. It was just a rough day, man. Like, we've talked on the show about like some of my anxiety and issues and stuff like that. And I'm down at work today, and I gotta filter some of what I'm saying just because there's students involved and my schools and my job's involved and stuff. But I found out one of my kids is getting bullied. And it's not by any of our students, it's other kids in the neighborhood around my school. And so I find this out, and it's been going on for a while, and we just found out about it today. So, we got the police involved and everything, and and took care of it. But the kids that are bullying them, they're bad kids, man. And it just sent me back to like my time teaching in Philly, some of my stuff from when I was a police officer. Like, it just put me in that mindset of be on your guard, and now I got to protect these kids who I'm crazy about. They're such great students, And that it was just that one shot of adrenaline to my gut that put me in that mindset, and it just totally brought me down, man, for the rest of the day. It was just really tough. So I was dealing with that, and then my wife, she had some stuff she wanted to pick up in town, so she met me down there after work, and we were just running around doing shopping with two kids, and I got home like 10 minutes before we were set to do the show. So I'm a little out of sorts, but I'm feeling like I'm good to go. But yeah, it was just that bullying issue just really upset me, man. Really upset me.
I don't know if we went over this before, but I kind of have this hypothesis about like adrenaline, and when you get into fight or flight, I have this hypothesis that it can disrupt your the flow of your like reward system chemicals. Like in other words, your dopamine and your serotonin can kind of be restricted. Because my hypothesis is that when we were evolving as organisms, if an organism was feeling happy, it wasn't going to react as quickly or as effectively to threats. So I think there's something in our system when we get a kick of adrenaline in fight or flight, we'll get depressed simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so like my experience has been when I'm being triggered into fight or flight, it tends to have an accompanying sense of depression. So I can relate to how you felt, like where you probably just got like moody and irritable after thinking that way and wanting to protect your student.
I don't even know if I wasn't really quite moody or irritable, but I was just, that my mood definitely changed, and it was almost like a little depression that came on. But the thing is, like I talk about it all the time, like I pay attention to my thoughts. So I can step outside of myself and I watch it happening. So I guess I'm able to control myself from having like crazy mood swings, But I just inside, I'm just feeling this.
But it's still there, anxiety. That's still,
it just weighs on me, and then having to be in a store after that and stuff, when I'm already in that mode. Where I guess some of it's PTSD that kind of comes up on me. it was just a tough afternoon for me. But I hung in there. My wife's a champ. She knows when I'm feeling it, and she takes good care of me.
That's good.
So yeah, so here I am home doing the show again, and excited to be here. Got some other big announcements that I want to put out tonight. And the first one being, and I'm going to pull this up on our screen share because this is huge, and I wish that she was on the air with us tonight to see this. But Lori Latimer, The Art of Service, a collection of haiku poems. The Kindle version is now available for pre-order for just 99 cents. Help Lori out. Place that pre-order. The link is going to be up. Give me a day or so to get the link up. Like I said, it's been a crazy day. I was supposed to have all this stuff done today, but you've got to get a copy of this. Her haikus have been written for Service of Change. She writes them once a week as she's walking to work on Tuesday for Haikus Day, and are designed to inspire that revolution of thought and positive change in this world and community service. And it's just a beautiful book. I'm really honored to have been able to work on this with her. So please check that out, The Art of Service, a collection of haiku poems. I will have the link on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Service of Change, and on my Twitter feed it's going to be blowing up. Dennis Nappy II, that's Nappii. Please check that out, and spread the word. The more people that download this book for her, the more exposure it's going to get. And this is her first book, and it deserves some great attention because Lori's got such a big heart. So help her out, spend the 99 cents, and get this Kindle version. I highly recommend it. It'll be well worth it. Great coffee table book. Sit there and just get some inspiration, every day as you pass by it or whatever. So definitely check it out. Awesome. And let's see, moving down, if you haven't done so already, I highly encourage you, and this will be relevant to our topic tonight, I highly encourage you to go to the Seeker and subscribe to the Seeker newsletter. And that's our Truth Seekers blog page. It's in support of my newest book. I'm using the hashtag I am human that I've been working on, and this newsletter is going to be all about stuff. Some paranormal stuff, esoteric stuff, things that I think need more attention in a positive light to bring understanding, because I really believe that it ties into a lot of the problems that we're facing in the world today. But when you start talking about that stuff, people kind of get all weird, saying, no, you're crazy. But I've got some really good, flat-out evidence that's going into this book. And Joel, real big announcement, I put a book together over the weekend that I am pretty sure I'm going to be releasing the electronic version for free within the next couple of weeks. So, but
wow.
It's to subscribers only, because this project I'm working on is so important to me, and I think to everybody else, on stuff that you and I have talked about on the show. That like I said, I believe in change, and I believe we need to be aware of some of this stuff that's going on. And I've got some real compelling information, in these two books that I think everybody should have a piece of. So the first one, I think I'm going to release that ebook for free. I think that's my plan. So I highly encourage you. You can go to serviceofchange.com and click on the projects page, and there's an archons link. And that'll open up for a newsletter you can subscribe to there. Or you go to servicechange.com, click on the Truth Seekers link, and there's a subscribe form right there too for the Seeker newsletter. Please subscribe to that. You get regular emails from me talking about my journey, talking about these books, kind of what to expect, and it's really interesting. And all I can say is my view of the world has changed. What happens when you start thinking about, well, we know parasites exist in this world. Well, what if there was some kind of parasite just outside our realm of perception that feeds off of human energy, much like a plant feeds off of the sun? So I promise you, in my book, I go into and explain a lot of that detail right there. So check it out. Subscribe to the Secret Newsletter. That book's going to be well worth the read. Even if you don't believe it, it's going to be entertaining at the very least. So I think those are all my major announcements. Oh, and one more. If you are a teacher or you know a teacher, this Wednesday, February 11th at 9 p.m., I'm doing a free webinar for how to use journals to improve classroom management. I'm all over the place, aren't I? I got from like esoteria to teaching. But yeah, using journals to improve classroom management. I've been in the worst of the worst schools, and I found that journals have been my key to reaching my students and improving management in my classroom and fixing behavior and stuff. So it's going to be an interesting podcast. It's going to be next Wednesday Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Subscribe. You got to sign up through. Just go to servicechange.com/teachers, and there's you'll see the link to this podcast or to this webinar, and it'll be well worth it. I promise. It'll be about a half hour long. So that's all my plugs, Joel. Am I missing anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Okay.
So you're a Renaissance man.
I guess so. I never intended to be.
It doesn't. You have a lot of balls in the air at any given time, and I think that's an awesome way to be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just I just kind of try to follow my gut and do what feels right, and this feels right. And I know I'm going to catch some flack for some of the stuff I'm putting out, but I'm at a point in my life where I've seen too much, I've experienced too much. I just can't keep my mouth shut anymore. It's just I think that it's important, and I'm coming to you from a place of hope, not of fear. So that's why I do what I do and say the things that I say. So, and speaking of good stuff, Joel, next week we're going to be making a big announcement. It's been a while. We had a Nominate a Helper campaign. Joel put up a $25 gift card. I put up one of my books. But because we were new at this, we didn't really promote it as well as we would have liked to. So we only got 2 people that submitted their responses to us. But because of the support they showed us, we're going to be announcing those 2 winners next week. Yes, both winners are going to get something from the show. So we'll talk more about that next week. But I wanted to make sure I addressed that on the air, Joel. So now we have to make sure it happens.
I was going to say that, but I didn't know if you were prepared to.
No, it's all good,
so
brother.
I didn't want to rush it if you weren't, because I know you had a lot of things going on.
I know, but this is a priority. I always say I got so much going on, but I hate when I use that as an excuse. It's important.
Well, it's better late than never.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll get into that next week. We'll make that a big part of our show. So all right. Well, I think that's about it for my intro and my standard plugs. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest here, if that's all right. He goes by the name of Charles Schiavo, and he graduated in 2002 from Westchester University for computer science. He lost a brother. He loves the Flyers and the Eagles, and he woke at 16 to false money and our Creator's alien agenda. He's continued to wake up in the realities humanity faced, studying 4 hours a day for at least 8 years, for the last 8 years. He's struggled with an opiate addiction. He's now living in LA and makes money selling on eBay and Amazon. So, without further ado, let me make sure I take the mute button off before I tell him he's good to go, because my computer's acting all goofy right now. But we're going to bring him on right about... Should be good. Nope.
Good old technology.
I know, right? After all that great intro.
You shouldn't have brought up the Archons.
Isn't that what happens every time, dude?
You bring up the Archons, and they get mad.
Well, game on. Let me look at my other screen here. Let me look. Unless that's him in the background.
Charles.
Hello?
There
Charles,
he is.
with us. Okay,
Yeah.
we got him.
Hey, buddy.
How are
What's
you,
up,
Joel?
dude?
Good, brother. It's
going
good to hear from you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on the show, man. So you have got a really, really interesting background. You're all over the place. And I got the chance to speak to you briefly before we went live on the air, but you and I graduated the same year from Westchester University, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, very.
And you know what? I think we're having a connection issue. Can you hear me, Charles? Are you there?
Yeah.
Yep, we've got a really...
I hear you guys perfectly.
Oh, okay. There you go.
We were having trouble hearing you, brother.
Yeah, we got you now, so we're good to go. That's what happens when we
really?
We do what I call not a low-budget operation, but a no-budget operation. So we have to deal with some of these technical difficulties. But Joel and I have gotten quite efficient at addressing them and keeping calm on the air,
improvising around them.
Yeah, we're good to go. One night I was mid-conversation with Joel, and he just kind of chimed off on me. He got kicked out completely, so I had to finish the show. But we did all right with that. So what I was saying, Charles, is you went to Westchester as well. What part of PA are you from?
Right outside of Philadelphia, west in Havertown.
No way. That's Joel and I are from Upper Darby.
Yeah, that I know Charles from the neighborhood,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, well, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Joel didn't give me that
Oh,
specific.
I should have
Oh,
told you that.
I thought you met him on the internet. Okay, my bad. Well, then that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so good stuff. So let's kind of go through this. You have a computer science degree. And are you working with that now or what?
Nah, my computer programming has not been my bread and butter, honestly. I really I mean, even my dad had a website, and you just don't throw off enough money, and all the work that it takes to get exposure just doesn't seem to be worth it, really. So I just kind of focus on what's already established and work with that.
Okay. So what are you doing? What are you doing just now? Why don't you bring our listeners up to speed? What's going on with you?
Oh, basically financially, I just kind of support myself through eBay and Amazon. Um, as far as expressing ideas, I feel like Facebook is still the best way to reach people. I understand the divide and conquer methodology, and so that's why they're trying to scare us away from Facebook right now. What's
Joel, you with me? I
I'm
got
here.
saying all that stuff right now to awaken minds, as far as I'm concerned.
Charles. I caught most of that, but every time you talk, man, somebody maybe it's the NSA themselves cutting in on what you're saying. Just to recap it, basically, just because it cut out on our end, I'm guessing you're saying with the divide and conquer on Facebook and fear being spread among people trying to keep people quiet, with all Big Brother and stuff watched now. Was that the gist of what you were getting at?
Yeah, my bad. I was just saying Facebook is still the best way to wake people up.
Hmm.
And the divide and conquer is trying to scare us away from it, and saying that it's NSA.
So what do you think? What do you think people need to be woken up to? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think the most important thing is banking, specifically.
Uh-huh.
Since 1913, basically the entire United States has been turned into a corporation. We've been plundered through our birth certificates, which are all straw men. That's why every single piece of mail that comes to you has your names in caps. It's not you. It's a fictitious straw man that we assume responsibility for. And basically, the corporation of the United States was bankrupt all the way back then. That's why in 1933 we were forced to give all our gold to the Federal Reserve banks. I don't know if you guys know that, but
Uh-huh.
basically we've been looted since the beginning.
We have a friend of the show, Keith Green. He's of YourGreenAmerica.com. He wrote an article for us. It went into all of this, went into the whole history. It's on our blog. Talking all about the Federal Reserve in 1913 and how all the money was given away and how the banks are controlling everything. And there's a really good website if you've ever gone to whatreallyhappened.com. He's got a whole bunch of podcasts on there, and he has one particular podcast. I'll have to find this link, and it's called All Wars Are Bank Wars. And he
Yeah.
ties in the correlation to how every war was, the banks were profiting off of both sides and stuff. It's really scary, when you listen. I mean, this is a well-educated man. I can't remember his name right now, but he's been on Coast to Coast a handful of times. And a lot of good information on there, though, basically how the banks are profiting off of both sides, and kind of manipulating and causing a lot of these wars, or all of these wars. It's really, really a scary thought. So how do you go about, I guess, waking people up to that then, Charles? I'm sure we have listeners out there, because we don't always go off the deep end on our show, but it's important to spread information. And we're not big fans of spreading fear. We're more just giving you information and knowledge you could use. So how would you pass that information on to somebody that maybe says, you guys are just conspiracy nuts?
Well, you got to work through people's cognitive dissonance. Most people don't want to know the truth, to be honest with you, because they enjoy going to work. They enjoy being able to buy a nice car and have a good house and a wife, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. But the truth is going to set us free. So you have to get past their initial rejection of knowing what I would consider negative information. You know what I mean? I mean, honestly, I've been depressed a lot of the time reading some of this stuff. It sucks. But in the end, if humanity wakes up to some of these things, then we're going to be able to create a system that's more fair. We're going to be able to create government that's more fair, and we're going to be able to have systems that work for the people rather than work for the select few. I mean, within the last 10 years, the top 1/10 of 1% has been affected by 50% year over year. And it's obvious when you see wages relative to 1970s haven't gone up at all. You still have massive amounts of debt. The average American has less than $3,000 in savings by the time they're 65. I mean, the signs are so obvious when you wake up, but most people just enjoy their lives and don't really want to know the truth.
Well, ignorance is bliss. I mean, because some people say,
Exactly.
well, what good is that knowledge going to do me if I'm, because the perception is I'm powerless to do anything about it. So what can people do when they realize, well, the world's ruled, by the top, 1/10%. They have all the money and they're going to keep us in debt because that's the way the game goes. When somebody hears it, they say, yeah, well, I can't do anything about it. I mean, what do you say to that person? Your standard person just working their 9 to 5, excited for the weekends to go have a couple beers and that's it. What do you say to that person?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll be honest with you. Like, I work more on the internet than I do in person.
Right.
I find that, like, generally speaking, if you work with somebody that's already a little bit interested in the information, it's a lot easier to get them further.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
The average human being on the street is probably just, I'm not going to say a lost cause, but it's just not worth my time, if that makes any sense.
It does. So, but I guess my question is, is that enough? By reaching out to people on the internet that have that interest, is that enough? Are there enough people now that can enact a change in this world, a real change in this world?
Well, it just got to just have faith that people are going to slowly wake up, and then every person that wakes up has a connection to a family. So, just vicariously through me waking up, I realized my uncle was awake, and through vicariously realizing that my uncle was awake, I realized that his oldest son was awake. You know what I mean? So then you go back and that's why I like Facebook too, because now I'm connected with my old high school friends, and I'm surprised at how many of my old friends are awake. So it just it spirals from there, and then it reaches a critical mass, and then the numbers have always been in our favor.
Well, the numbers are in our favor if everybody knew what to do, and I guess that's my next question, because I think that with the truth movement, I have a couple feelings on it. Is that I think it's been corrupted, in some fashion, and I think also everybody's talking about wake up, gotta wake you up, gotta wake you up, and everybody wakes up and goes, all right, well now what do we do? So it's one thing to know what the problem is, but I don't always hear a lot of people talking about solutions. So what do you think is our next step? Because I think we're beyond the let's wake everybody up, because there's a lot of people who are aware of it, but my fear is that some people are waking up and they're still in a dream.
Can I field that question? Just
go
for
for
a suggestion.
Go for it.
Credit cards, don't use them.
Yeah.
Don't use them. I mean, I get pressure. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, I was saying I had to get my cars fixed. I have used cars. I don't have a car note. But I have 3 used cars, and I have to fix them a lot, but it actually ends up being cheaper, although it's unpredictable. It ends up being cheaper in a year than having full coverage, insurance coverage, because I have liability on all 3, and having a car note. It ends up being cheaper, but people are like, how are you ever going to buy anything? And I get that. I still would like to buy a house someday, but but it's not like instantly there was this like stigmatizing force coming from this person saying, how are you ever going to participate fully in society? He didn't say that, but that was the subtext. If you don't have credit.
That's the party line. That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And reject that party line. I mean, there's a variety of ways to gain and keep wealth. That's why I like what you're doing, Charles. Like you're your own entrepreneur. You're selling things on the internet. You know what I mean? That's an amazing way to make a living if you can do it.
Yeah, it's fun too. You're your own boss, and you got to wake yourself up. You don't have some alarm clock telling you where to be and when to be there, but you definitely have your own way of being able to control what you buy, what you sell, how you connect with people, and it's just more fun being on your own, really. I don't know if I would go so far to say more fun, but just more worth my time.
More liberating.
Well, you got
Yes.
to have that human connection, I think, with your customers. Which, like, I've had experiences working in corporate or semi-corporate environments where my ability to connect, to do my job, was restrained by, oh, you can't say that, you can't do that, you got to move this direction. And obviously, often there's people that know better than me, and I don't want to always just be like this rebel who's going against the grain, because sometimes people in authority are there because they have expertise. But at the same time, like, I deliver pizza and I get human connections with everybody. I'm all over my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, just connecting with people, even if it's just small talk. Like, when I'm having a good day, like, I chit chat with people, like, I build relationships with people, and that's all for the better. Because my job is simple. I'm bringing somebody food. I'm like an artery. I'm like the blood cells that are bringing oxygen. You know what I mean? So I'm like I'm providing a good service, and meanwhile I get to build relationships with people.
Yeah.
That's very important. So we've got this financial issue. We've got a possible solution of don't use your credit card. And that's obviously easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think about, like, I was on that track. Like, I was getting ready to sell my house and go not completely off the grid, maybe the step before going off the grid. And then I had 2 kids, and I had no choice. I had to put stuff on the credit card.
Yeah.
It sucks, and again, it's the way the system's designed. So, I guess to the people that are in there, and because this can be overwhelming, like you said, Charles, you've experienced depression and stuff, and I know when I first started doing my homework and my research, I went through a major depression because I looked at the world like, wow, everything's a lie, and it's designed for me, people like me, to not succeed. To me,
Yes.
They want me to always struggle. They want me to always be trying to play catch up.
Well,
Hardship,
it's a pyramid
pain.
scheme.
Yeah.
It's a pyramid scheme. It's just they don't sell it to you as a pyramid scheme.
Right, of course.
Modern capitalism, and I'm not talking about free market. There's a difference between capitalism and the free market. People conflate the two all the time. Modern corporate capitalism is a pyramid scheme. They get enriched off of you.
Well, that makes sense, Joel. It really does. So, what to the person who's sitting there having those feelings? What do you do when you're feeling that, that frustration? That I need to use my credit card. I need to, whatever. What are they supposed to do?
I wish I had all the answers. It's really an individual thing. If you need to do what you need to do, like you said, when you had your kids, that's whatever. Nobody's gonna be able to tell you to do something different if you need to do something. But it's just about realizing what's going on, and the more people that realize it, just the better that we're going to be able to do. I think a good idea actually is localized currencies. If like say like Havertown, where I was born, right? If everybody started to buy silver and store it in a local bank that was only specific to Havertown and issued its own Havertown currency and only bought local goods, local food, it sounds a little crazy, but I think that could actually work and take the bankers' major artery away from them, which is money.
Well, I don't think it sounds that crazy. I mean, and I think we have enough people out there, especially with the prepper movement now, that are building their own communities. So I don't think that sounds as far-fetched, as you may think, Charles. And so I think that's a good idea if you've got a large enough group of people that are willing to start their own community. I mean, I think a grassroots movement is great. So connect with people in your neighborhood, and like you said, there are people who are aware of a lot of these problems that are going on in the world. And, I mean, you think about everybody's in debt, and the people that aren't in debt are getting the free ride off of government paycheck or whatever. That's a whole other topic for discussion. But so do what you can, I guess, is really the best advice. If you cut one thing out of your life, and if everybody was to cut that same one thing out of your life, well, that's going to affect that company's bottom line. So do what you can, I think, is a good piece.
It's about consumption. I mean, I think there's nothing. See, I get a lot of information from people on the left, and I grew up on the left, and a lot of times it's like there's this idea that consumption is always bad, just like competition is always bad, and wealth is always bad. And as I evolved as a person, as I woke up, I realized it has everything to do with intent. So, like Charles was saying, like if you're using your credit cards responsibly to help yourself get ahead for your children, your motives are pure.
Yeah.
But someone who's using a credit card in a way that's unsustainable, and they're using it to, like me and Charles both have this background. We know what it's like to be addicted, and so like there's a lot of people that don't fit the conventional stereotype or profile of an addict who live an addict lifestyle where they're constantly trying to fill something internal with an external thing. So they're consuming in order to fill up their hearts. Whereas if you're buying things that enrich your life, or you're spending money in a way that is going to be helpful to other people, or you're spending money like, say, art. Like if you buy like a nice piece of artwork, you're supporting that artist. And then
Joe, hang on one sec. Joe, hang on 1 second. Was that? Did you guys hear that feedback?
It sounded like there's a drag race over in L.A. Charles is in L.A., so it is the Wild West over there. So we have to remember that.
Thank you for that tip. It's all right. Just making sure my headphones not acting up. But Joel, go on. You were making a good point. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that I think it often comes down to motive in terms of how we use our time, the way we work. Like I think there's wonderful people that have built like really powerful businesses, and they're good people. For example, like there's this idea that somehow money itself will corrupt people, and people take this proverb and they twist it around and they say money's the root of all evil. Well, actually, the proverb originally says it, and you can argue about the original proverb, but at least get the original proverb right, which it says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
The love of money at the exclusion of the love of other things. So if you have a love of money, but it's tempered or balanced with a love of yourself and your love of other people and a love of your family and a love of creativity, whatever, all the other loves you could possibly have, then it's going to occupy a healthy place with the other loves. So I think they're talking about a love, all-consuming love of money, where that's the only love you have. And I know people like that.
Yeah,
there are people like that, and they are broken people who do destructive things.
Yeah, I've had students that, all they talked about, I love money, I love that green, and some of it was just them imitating things they hear, in music and stuff. But I've had kids, all they want to do is make money, and they were very superficial. They were very, I wouldn't trust them. You know what I mean? They'll do anything for that money to make that dollar. And that's a very scary thing. So
when I hear kids saying that, it scares me. It really does.
Yeah, because they don't understand.
Straight from the music industry. That's all the rap is. Rap is to corrupt people. I mean, some people even think it's satanic worship, literally. I mean, I'm not going to go that far, but it really does seem very, very dark. Even like the Super Bowl, like the halftime show, she was basically riding in on the beast of the Bible. I mean,
I haven't caught it yet. I've heard about it. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it.
Charles, I've watched it, and I don't think that these people are literally worshiping Satan, but I think they're playing around with imagery that's associated with it in order to mess with people. It goes back to Aleister Crowley. They're engaging in deconstruction. They're using archetypes that the culture shares and using them against people. They're kind of laughing probably somewhere going, we're not really Satanists, but we've convinced everybody that we are. So because effective art often takes your deepest fears. And Dennis, you often talk about how like fear mongering. Well, like a lot of these videos, like Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, what they're doing is they're often deconstructing sexual archetypes, which I'm not against it in and of itself. Like, sex isn't wrong, once again, in and of itself, but they're doing it in sneaky ways. So they have half-naked people, and they're making like these veiled, like Lady Gaga makes these veiled references to engaging in orgies. And Poker Face, she's miming, doing orgiastic pantomime in order to send messages out there to kind of engage our phobias, because sometimes our sexuality is covered in phobia, and actually what will be the most erotic is the subliminal sexual self, so to speak. It's not out there in the middle. So she's deliberately playing around with the viewers puritanical defenses against sexuality and breaking them slowly. And a lot of the Satanists who didn't really necessarily believe in Satan, they believed in like Anton LaVey, he believed in the self. He believed in hedonism, basically. He was an atheist who believed that you should fill up your desires. They thought sexuality was once sort of like the love of money, like the love of physical pleasure was their cults. And so a lot of these messages that are coming at us is like you can fill your deepest desires through the flesh. Like you can fill up your heart with things of the flesh, whether it be drugs or sex or money or things like that. And that is, if you ask Christians, that is Satanism. Like that's the interesting thing. That is Satanism. That's what Christians have always talked about, being satanic. And it's not necessarily about there being like evil demons lurking. It's about like how as a culture and how our children are raised and how as teenagers and adolescents, how they spend their time. Like, how do they spend their money? Like, what are their values? Are they going to work hard and save money for a better life? Or are they going to blow it all? And you have a whole generation of people who are just living for the flesh. I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all good. Charles, do you have any reaction to that?
No, that was very good. Honestly, that was perfectly well said. You know, that's like that. Really, the reason why I brought it up originally was like, I don't want to say a specific class of people exhibits this worse than others, but basically the black culture is very much in the music industry trying to push selling drugs, go to jail. Going to jail is cool. It's all about money, and you know, that is some scary stuff. To make going to jail cool, to make selling drugs a good thing. I mean, couldn't be any worse. Literally, to have a message.
I don't know that it's necessarily the black culture that's pushing that. I think that's more it's what's been pushed on the black culture. You know, I just heard, and again, this I got to take with a grain of salt, you know, because it was some quote-unquote radio executive who was pulled into a secret meeting by all the top people, and they said, look, we have investments in the private prison population, you know, in the private prison system, and what we want to do is turn hip-hop, which, you know, was a black cultural music of expression. It was actually, you know, very good, powerful music talking about their struggle, and they said, we want to glorify, you know, the gang life, drugs, and glorify going to prison. And you did see in the 90s that turn toward gangster rap where it started glorifying all that. So I don't know how true that secret meeting was, but if you look at the turn of the way the whole industry went, you know, so and I think now, you know, you talked about divide and conquer. Well, that gives people the perception, oh, this is the black culture. No, I think that's the image that's being portrayed of the black culture. You know, I work
in Charles's defense, I think, or to kind of bridge between what both of you said, I think there are actually, ironically, like when we first started having this conversation, we talked about like waking up and like how like there's resistance to waking up because most people live in a kind of dream of semi-healthy denial because most people can't wake up all at once. It'd be like sneaking into your bedroom and going, "Wake up!" Yeah. You're going to be scared. You know what I mean? You're going to be disoriented. So it has to be a slow, gradual awakening. There's a lot of people who, when you live at the bottom, you kind of already see all the crap.
Yep.
You already see, so you're kind of awake, and you can go one direction or the other. You can go the direction of trying to help other people, or you can give up. And I had a moment in my life where I was like, I'm giving up on this. I'm going to just, you can't beat them, join them. So I sold drugs, and I got into that whole ethos. And I lived it, and I remember thinking, well, I don't have, which was not true, but I felt like I had no options. I felt like I was too weird, I was too damaged, I was too scarred, I was too disadvantaged. I had made too many mistakes, so I might as well just try to like do it the outlaw way. And I think a lot of black folks buy into that. And then you have people that are making deals who used to live that way, and now they've made it, and they're kind of in the middle where it's like, you know, if they try to sell conscious rap, it doesn't sell. And then they have the executives also talking to them, going, "This is what sells." So there's different forces. So they're kind of selling their soul and selling their own people down the river by putting this type of music out there. But they justify it because they're like, "Hey, listen, I had to make it. Like, you would do the same thing if you had this chance." Like, that's what a lot of them say. Like, Don't hate on me, because if you were in my shoes, it'd be very hard for you to resist this temptation to do this as well.
You know, you're right, Joel. Again, I guess what just makes me, I guess, uncomfortable is, you know, that picture that gets painted saying, you know, this is black culture and it's black culture that's doing
See,
it.
I didn't mean it like that, Dennis. I didn't mean it
No,
like black culture. Okay,
I
I
wasn't
meant
upset
like the
with
black
the-
music specifically.
Well, there's subcultures. That's the problem.
Right, but
It's the
that's
problem.
and it's this. Go ahead, just real quick. Let me just get this in. And Charles, my apologies. That wasn't directed at you. That just what I see in the industry. I mean, that is what's put out there. You know, and you talk to people who aren't familiar with the black culture, and that's what they're saying. They're saying, oh, black people, they just care about rap and stealing and drugs and all that stuff. You know, because I think that's the way that the industry is designed, and they glorify that stuff, like I said, to the children. Like, my students listen to that stuff, and some are like, yeah, I'm about that life, and I'm like, you don't even know that life. Don't tell me, you know what I mean? But that's what they hear and they see. You know, but there's a great organization. You know, it's called Rage Against the Racket, or the Ratchet. I'm sorry. My brother does a lot of work with them, and they're trying to put that positive spin in the music that's being put out to the black youth and the black culture. So, Charles, my apologies if I came off harsh that way. It's just,
You know what, Dennis? You know what the perfect analogy is? The perfect analogy to the way people who are not acquainted with black culture or the various subcultures that we put simplistically under one umbrella, black culture, is people that talk about police or people that talk about white privilege.
right.
Like, there's always an element of truth to what they're saying, but you're talking about, in any of these cases, you're talking about millions and millions of different people who live in different places, they're navigating multiple influences. So it's hard to nail down using words and language what's really going on, but at the same time, culture is real. There's like a culture among most police where there's a code of silence.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean all police are beating people up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We have some really good points. I think we've kind of digressed in a different direction than we originally wanted to go to. I mean, we're talking about a lot of the symbolism that you're seeing in music, again, which has a lot of power, I think, and influence over people, and it's the facade of this Satanism and stuff. So let me move this in a slightly different direction. You know, and Charles, here's something that has always bothered me. Is with this stuff that's coming out, especially through the music industry, you hear a lot of talk about the Illuminati. And here's my biggest, and I asked this question as somebody who used to work as an analyst for Army intelligence. That's where this aspect of my brain works from. If this organization is so old and so secretive, and this agenda's been in the works for, some will tell you, thousands of years, how come all of a sudden they're failing so miserably that people are finding out? Why do you think that is?
Well, basically, I kind of feel as though when you see things from a money standpoint, and the fact that like the IMF is basically in such a bad spot right now with the austerity in Europe, that almost every single state has failed since the introduction of the euro. So that just wakes people up by itself. When the system starts to fail, people have to wake up. You don't have a choice, because now you have to make a choice, if that makes any sense, as to what to do next. And like now we're seeing that Greece just voted in the anti-capitalists, which are going to forgive all debts and get rid of the austerity programs that have been absolutely killing the Greeks, killing their islands, selling them to the bankers. I mean, this could be the straw that actually changes some things for the better as far as people go.
But Dennis is asking, what if the Illuminati actually exists? How do we know about them? I think that's what he's saying.
I'm saying, why do we know about them? Because they're, again, if they exist, then then this crisis and trauma that we're dealing with now has been planned for a long, long time, according to a lot of the theories. So why all of a sudden is this information being leaked out? I mean, now you're hearing about Bilderberger groups and the Skull and Bones and the Freemasonic stuff. All that stuff is now out, and a lot of it's mainstream. Why is that made public now? I mean, did these guys who are really sworn these oaths, who have got these bloodlines that go back thousands of years, are they really getting that careless at this stage in the game?
They've always been that careless because that was their thing. They like to hide it in plain sight. And so I think honestly one of the biggest things that started to wake people up was Hollywood, honestly. Like we were talking about the symbology of things. One of the best movies that was waking people up was The Matrix.
Uh-huh.
And they watered down the second and the third one, but the first one really showed like what's going on, like how important it is to face reality rather than live in accordance to, have 2 kids, have the dog, have the white picket fence, have the nice car. It was time to say, wait a minute, there's a million people on the street with nothing. There's people that go hungry every single day.
Right.
There's corporations absolutely plundering other countries' labor, and it has like they hide it by saying, well, we have not enough technical skilled labor in America. I mean, that is a joke. We have plenty of skilled labor. The corporations just want higher profit. So I mean, if you ever see one of these cell phone makers corporations in China, I mean, we're talking people working 16 hours, falling asleep at their desk.
Right, it's terrible. They had to put the suicide nets out under the windows because people were jumping out and killing themselves. Go ahead, Joe.
To answer your question, it's just a little tidbit. I did a report on the Satanic Bible, like Anton LaVey, when I was in college, and I read it, and it said, and I don't know if this answers the question directly, but it's a little clue. Anton LaVey didn't believe in magic, but he said that you could hex people and he actually said that if you went up to somebody you didn't like, and like, I lay a hex on you, it would be more effective if they don't believe it, if they scoff at it, because what that'll usually indicate is that consciously they're like, that doesn't exist. But subconsciously, you'll be triggering a lot of their stuff, like maybe it does exist.
Right.
And then the tension between the subconscious, that doubt, will actually cause them to second guess, and then they'll like kind of be distracted driving, and they'll just have this sense of unease the rest of their day, and they'll create their own bad results. Whereas if you were someone like me, if someone came up and said, Joel, I hex you, I'd be going and doing some magic to try to protect myself. So I'd be actually reacting healthily.
Because your intention of I'm safe is what's counteracting their hex.
Yes, so I think the idea that like Charles was saying, is that they actually have more power in messing with people by throwing that stuff out there and having people go, oh, there's no such thing. So
that's my point. If I could just jump in real quick. Charles, you mentioned The Matrix. I love The Matrix. I think it was a great movie to enlighten people. But if you remember in the second one, at the very end when Neo meets the architect, he realizes that this whole truth movement has been a lie. It's been designed to get me to remain a part of the system. They planned for it and they prepared it. And that's what I've been saying in our past couple shows. We've talked about this stuff, is to be aware of that, because my point is, if we're aware of this organization that exists and the level of evilness that they're putting out and knowledge that they have, I think that we're aware of it because they want us to be. And that's why I caution people, like with this whole, waking people up to the militarization of police. What are people doing? They're getting guns and they're starting a revolution. Well, what's that going to do? That's not going to bring peace. That's going to bring more violence against you. So I think that this agenda of leaking this type of information out, I caution people to make sure that you're not waking up still inside the matrix, quote unquote. You really need to understand, like Joel said, when somebody puts a hex on you, your level of belief in it is what gives it that power. It's instead of looking at it and fighting it, I always say, go in a different direction. Like you said, start your own bank. Start small. Just do something different. Because if we're aware of it, if they really do exist, you know what they want you to know. That's my whole point.
Okay, no, that's fair. I can't really even argue with that, to be honest with you. But I still think that the truth movement has a benefit to us, because as consciousness raises, then we get past these people's control mechanisms, and that's only going to happen if people wake up.
You're absolutely right, Charles, and I guess my hope is that waking up is not about this. We have people that wake up and then they stay focused on that. As David Icke always says, you're still in the outer rim of that rabbit hole. You need to really go into that, and you need to start looking within yourself and saying, well, who am I, first of all, and how do I relate to this world?
Awakening is not an event; it's a process.
You're right. It's not like one day you have an epiphany.
Stay awake.
Right, and that's not easy to do because then it's a constantly changing game. So let me move us forward a little bit because we got about 10 minutes left on our show, Charles. And you also mentioned in your bio that there was something about the creators and the alien agenda, and how does that all tie into this?
Okay, that's Joel talked about the pyramid scheme and the all-seeing eye and all that, and basically that is everything. For even down to our religions, the three different Abrahamic religions are all at odds with each other, literally because of ETs that were in control of Babylon, South Africa, and Egypt, ended up fighting each other over the gold of this beautiful earth. So how that factors into right now is we were created as a slave race to mine gold for these beings. And once they created us, the factions decided to have one, which was to keep 100% slaved, 100% stupid, 100% unable to wake up to any type of consciousness, and that our direct creator wanted us to wake up and learn, and that is the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. And that is why some actually believe that the snake is the good guy. I don't want to get too many people too crazy on that, but it's an interesting way of looking at it from a different perspective. If you read anything into Zechariah Sitchin, he decoded the Sumerian tablets, and all this information is very much more thorough than our Bible.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sitchin. I read the 12th Planet. I know there's a lot of controversy over Sitchin's translations on some of the things that he's translated. There's a whole website dedicated to SitchinisWrong.com, but I've also looked at the research of Robert Morningsky. I don't know if you're familiar with him, and Michael Tessarian. Michael Tessarian's he's an excellent researcher who started out in Ireland,
yes,
with the Celtic cults and stuff of that nature. But he does tell a similar story of, basically in the garden, man was there, and the whole, true or not, I don't know, but it blew my mind to look at it from the perspective of, well, Adam and Eve were enslaved. They didn't realize that they were part of this slave race, and the cult of the serpent, showed up and said, hey, you're going to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is me telling you that basically your life is a lie, and you are enslaved and being used for X, Y, Z. And that was, then the whole, and then when you look at religion that way, they say, well, religion was designed to keep you ignorant of that fact. And Satan being the bad guy, yeah, he's bad to their agenda of saying, hey, you really don't have to be a slave to this God, So, and that's
Dennis, the Gnostics also kind of have a variation where they believe that there's a creator, or not a creator. There's kind of like an overseer of the broken, like totally corrupt material world who masquerades as God.
Yes, and that's
very similar.
Yes.
They talk, I'm reading John Lamb Nash's book right now as research for. This is what my book is about. My next book is about. In part of this, and John Nash talks about the Gnostics and and the esoteric knowledge that they had of how Sophia came from the center of our galaxy. If you ever heard of like Gaia intelligence, or Sophia, she is the earth, that essence, that energy. She's the creator goddess, basically. And when she created the earth out of herself, this other force was created almost as a side effect, these archons. And they are what come in and now wreak havoc and corrupt man and are masquerading as God. I mean, and this is one of the major questions that I explore in my next book and that I've been talking about. And spending a lot of time thinking about it. And this is kind of what got me on the path of opening my mind a little bit more, is why is God so angry? Why? Like, I think as a parent, as a father, I don't care how bad my kid is, I will never tell my kid you are going to be suffering for an eternity in hell. There's nothing my kid can do that's going to, but, so don't tell me God loves me if you're then going to tell me, but if I mess up by, having premarital sex or, getting a divorce or something like that, that you're going to condemn me to hell, because then that's not love. And
well, that's kind of a corruption of the. Not saying you're corrupting it, but I think the messaging. I mean, but there's a lot of doctrinal and sectarian specifics where you could go off in different directions. But yes, the image of a punishing God is the image that is often given to us.
That's how I was brought up.
Yeah, no, and that's
confession, and that's not all aspects of Christianity. It's not.
It's not.
My point is,
you're right, but it is a relevant and prominent one.
Yes, that's a very extreme form that's out there, and that's how I was brought up. That's what I was taught. And there's a lot of people that are taught that you are a sinner.
An authoritarian, almost fascistic God.
Right. I mean, you read the Old Testament. I am a jealous God, and then he goes into saying, worship no gods other than me. Well, okay, so there's other gods out there. You just don't want us to worship. You know what I mean? Like and that's what a lot of the ancient astronaut theorists get into and stuff. My point is, stuff doesn't jive, and when I was a kid, to question that in and of itself was a sin. So what I'm saying is just question things, and if your faith is strong enough, it will hold up. But we really need to take and this is my whole point, is we really need to take an open and honest look at ourselves and our spirituality, because until we know ourselves, we're going to continue to go down this path of hardship and struggle and sacrifice, because we accept that's the way it's supposed to be, and it's not. We are entitled to so much more. All right, we've had an awesome discussion. I think we're coming about 5 minutes left on the show. Charles, I'm going to hand it back to you for any final thoughts, anything else that you want to get out to our listeners that's you think is important for them to be aware of.
Well, no, I appreciate the fact that you told the people that Sitchin does have some deniers, but what has reinforced my faith is this guy Michael Tellinger. Uh-huh. He literally found the ruins of the South African continent. Mines that were. It's hard for me to explain everything within the last 5 minutes. I'm stressing myself out a little bit. But anyway,
we'll go over a little bit if you need to. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just the bottom line is Dr. Sasha Lessin has also furthered what's going on in the field of ancient alien or ancient astronaut theory. And basically, they left us with this hierarchical society in which we have to break through. Because it's very male-dominated. It's very anti-woman. It's very anti-nature. And that plays into the consumerism and the chopping down of trees, and it just plays into all that. And it's just getting to the point where we really need to find that divine feminine within ourselves as men, specifically.
Well, it's funny because it plays into the type of extreme violence and drug dealing you were talking about. That's naked brute capitalism at its worst.
That's the
imbalance I get money for everything else.
Like Charles said, I think that stems from the imbalance of male energy, and I agree with you, Charles. And that's why, a lot of the apocryphal works were that were taken out of the Bible was like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It was that feminine piece, that feminine energy that has been cut out. So, to our listeners out there, the people are going, you guys are nuts. Take the I'm not completely sold on the ancient astronaut or ancient aliens. I think I'm more, I don't know yet, but my point is, take all that stuff out of it, and you can't deny that the feminine aspect has been downplayed and taken out of our society when it's an essential piece. We've lost that nurturing and that compassion, and I think we need to find a way to bring that back to our society. I mean, they say women have equal rights now. No, a woman being equal now means a woman can act like a man. You know, if a woman goes in and acts like a woman, they say, "Oh, you're weak. You're just a woman. You know, you got to do the job of a man." No, you know,
Yeah.
and that's a problem in society. We don't look at a woman who comes in there to nurture and show compassion. Well, that's a sign of weakness in the business world. You know, you want to be a successful, equal woman, you got to act like a man. That's what equal rights.
And then you get criticized for being a bitch.
Exactly. So that's what equal rights has become for women. It's not equal rights for women. It's repressing your feminine nature and adopting the masculine. And that's why we got so many wars, because that's the male energy, you know, because there is an imbalance in this planet right now. So we do. We need the men out there, get in touch with your, I'm being dead serious, get in touch with your emotions. Get in touch with your feminine side. Go hug a tree. And I sound like I'm being a smart ass, but I mean it. I moved to the woods for a reason. Go do it. So,
That's some good stuff right there. I like that.
Yeah, definitely some good things there, Charles. So I appreciate your insight. You know, I know it's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. I hope that you know, this podcast gets to the people that need to hear it. You know, and it's well worth looking at. And like I said, you know, definitely subscribe to my Seeker newsletter. You know, I have my Truth Seekers blog up on at servicetochange.com/truthseekers right now. And if you look down, there's a form right here. You can. Oh, that's if you want to write. Here's the form for us right here. If you want to subscribe to the Secret Newsletter, I have a free ebook coming out. It talks about my intro into this stuff. You know, as kind of a build-up for the book that I'm going to be releasing next spring. So. The free ebook should be available in the next couple of weeks, but sign up now, you know, just to make sure you're going to get your copy of it. Servicechange.com. Click on the Truth Seekers link; it's right there. I promise you, it's well worth it. So we're just about out of time. Charles, anything else? Your last minute, last thoughts, or anything?
I'm just so appreciative of the fact that other people are really, you know, in touch with some things. You know, it's been a lonely journey. You know, I really woke up around 16, and you know, when you're 16 and all your friends just start drinking and just don't know anything, it was just tough, you know. And so it's been years, you know, and finally people are really just aware, and it's beautiful. It's so good to see. Like, honestly, Dennis, I don't know you at all, but I'm just so impressed with what you've been able to accomplish already.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. I really do, and it's nice to hear level-headed, like-minded people. You know, because at the end of the day, you're not out here pushing rise up, revolution, go fight the man. You know, it's just do something different. Look within yourself and do something positive out there. Like you said, that alternative banking system. You know, there's nothing violent about that. There's nothing revolutionary about that. It's just do something different, and that's the core concept, the core drive of Service to Change. Is you don't have to go out and fight. There's nothing to fight. Just do something different and live the life that you want to live. And I think that's how change can come about.
And
so
continue
Charles,
to learn and ask questions and talk to people. I mean, I'm willing to explore anything and any belief. Like I used to have certain like no-go places. Like I'm not gonna even listen to somebody who says something like that. And that really hindered me. And now I have an open mind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you never know what you learn something from everybody, you know.
Exactly.
You absolutely learn. I used to tell when I'd have a new soldier join my team when I was deployed, what can you teach me? You know, you're fresh out of the schoolhouse. You know something I don't know. You know, everybody's got something. So that's a good point, Joel. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Charles, please stay on the line. We'll talk with you once we get off the air. Joel, any final thoughts for us?
Okay.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate you coming on.
Joe, I really appreciate the invite, man.
No problem.
Really cool of you.
Good stuff. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show then. So to our listeners, thank you so much. Please, again, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the show, for listening. Please continue to share our stuff. Just hit that like button. Just hit that share button. Tell your friends. Tell your family. We're trying to do something good here. I highly encourage you to sign up for the Secret Newsletter. You definitely won't regret it. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/servicetochange. You can also check us out, servicetochange.com/truthseeker, where if you want to get more of this stuff that we've talked about, that's where I'm posting. I got a different video every day going up there. I have articles going up about that too. You know, follow me on Twitter, Dennis Nappy II. That's NAPPIII. I also have a Truth Seekers account. That's Truth SEIKERS. I got a lot going on here, but we're trying to get this information out in a couple different couple different ways. So please, I invite you to join that and be a part of that. And also, please check out Lori Latimer's book. It is available now for pre-order, just 99 cents for your Kindle version. Support Lori. She's been such a strong backbone of this show and of Service to Change. It's called The Art of Service, a collection of haiku poems that you want to search for now on Amazon. Otherwise, look for the links on our social media feeds. So that is all the time we have right now. Please join us next week. We'll have another great show. We're going to go over the results of our Nominate a Helper campaign. We'll be awarding them their copies of my book, Service, and a gift card from Joel. So again, thank you to our guest tonight, Charles. It's been a wonderful pleasure talking with you. To our listeners, thank you so much. Remember that small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Be that change. Thank you.